I have this year's iPhone 15 Pro Max and last year's iPhone 14 Pro. Are the cameras actually any better? Is it all hype? So I'm currently in the centre of Sheffield and we're gonna take some photos of the architecture. There's this winter garden, like this big indoor garden wood thing that looks cool. So let's go and try the cameras. I thought they were fake. I didn't realise they were real. That's just weird. Oh, that'd be good for macro. Some of the differences that Apple are claiming are new with the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max is, of course, mainly with the Pro Max having that 5x zoom lens, the 120mm equivalent. Apparently that now has a 2x larger sensor, so it should be better in low light. Is it too zoomed in? That's probably why they've only put it on the Pro Max. They've also leveled up from Smart HDR4 to Smart HDR5 from the 14 Pro. They are pretty close together, but there's a massive difference when it comes to flare and resolution and HDR. I didn't think the difference would actually be that big off the bat straight away with the first times lens. They now have 7 lenses, and I know there's only 3 on the back, so by cropping in on the 48 megapixel sensor, we now get a 0.5x zoom, which is the ultra wide, and then the main camera, which is a 24mm, and then a 28mm and a 35mm, all within that main 24mm lens. Because of the 48 megapixels, it's just cropping in. Now all that stuff's mainly to do with photos. In terms of video, Apple now has ProRes in log, which means you're going to get a flat color profile so that you can color grade and get a little bit more dynamic range from your video. Due to the USB-C port on the bottom, you can also now record externally, which means that you can record 4K 60 frames per second in ProRes in log to a separate device. And then there's something they're doing with portrait mode. Now they're calling this next generation portraits. And that basically means that the phone will recognize what it is that you're taking a picture of, even if it's not in portrait mode. It will pick up that depth information and then be able to turn that into a portrait photo after the fact. So with all that being said, is the iPhone 15 Pro actually any better than the 14 Pro? On paper, yes, but in reality? Let's find out. Prefer this one? Yeah. Why do you prefer this one though? Why do you prefer the Pro Max? It looks clearer. What if I told you that they've actually done nothing with that lens this year?
I don't know, maybe it's not because it's bigger.
Is it because it's bigger? See, that's one thing I wanted to catch you out on. Do you just prefer the image just because it's on a bigger screen? Probably. I know your games. Taking there. I'm gonna try and get a photo of it with a 5x lens. See, that's the 3x lens on the iPhone 14 Pro and 5x on the 15 Pro Max. See that flare coming through? Hitting the entire lens like that, and on the iPhone 15 it's just a small dot. Now, Apple claims that this is all down, what you're seeing right now, to being a new coating on the lens that actually reduces that flare. You can also clearly see in the photo that that glare being reduced adds way more contrast into the image, letting those wood beams actually take a much more naturally warmer look. Like the oranges in that wood is so much more saturated compared to the iPhone 14 Pro. So these 3 clips here are shots of ProRes Log, ProRes HDR and ProRes SDR. Now if you have the opportunity to use ProRes Log and you throw it into Final Cut and you think, oh well, that doesn't look like a flat colour profile to me, well don't worry, because Apple is actually sneakily doing something here. Basically, if you go over to the eye icon on your inspector, go down to where it says basic in that drop tab menu, change that to general, and then you'll now realise that Apple is actually already adding its own Apple Log LUT to the footage to bring back that contrast. Very sneaky. I'd prefer that they didn't do that without telling you. I'd rather just import the footage and it just be a flat color profile. So the benefits of using log are more dynamic range and more color information. That way it makes it easier for you to get the look that you want. Now, unfortunately, on the shoot out in Sheffield, didn't take enough camera batteries with me. Just took the one like an absolute pleb. So we're gonna finish this video in the office. Let's take a look at some solid side-by-side photos of the iPhone 14 Pro Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So on the left-hand side is the iPhone 14 Pro, and on the right-hand side is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now immediately you can see there is a major difference. Look at the sky in the 15 Pro Max, and then look at the sky in the iPhone 14 Pro. It's clearly more blown out on the 14 Pro. There's way less contrast in the image. Overall, it looks a lot bluer because of that flare that's coming in. So immediately, the iPhone 15 Pro looks way better. However, is it enough to purchase a new phone? Maybe not, but then again, this is only the first image that we've looked at. Let's take a look at a couple more. So moving on to the shot of inside. So again, we've got a shot where direct sunlight is hitting that main lens, and straight away you can see that that new coating on the lenses is affecting this result massively. The glare from the sun flare on the iPhone 15 Pro is practically non-existent compared to the 14 Pro. For me, this is a massive deal because I don't want my images to be low contrast and blue and weird and have this giant flare running through it. I much prefer retaining all that color information, that dynamic range, and having minimal flare. So the third photo is a crossing in the middle of town. So as you can see, there doesn't seem to be any major difference off the bat until we zoom in again to those clouds on the right hand side, in which you can see a little bit more dynamic range on the 15 Pro. Now you'll notice on this photo when we do zoom in on the iPhone 15 Pro, again that 24 megapixel is just making it a tad sharper. Nothing to go crazy about, nothing worth upgrading over the iPhone 14 Pro so far. It's extremely close. I mean, let's face it, the difference this year is nowhere near as big as it could be or should be, or maybe you wanted it to be. However, there is small improvements, but I think this year's phone upgrade is totally down to the fact that if you want that log in ProRes, or if you want the 5x lens. Let's move on to the second to last photo we're going to take a look at, which is a photo of this clock tower. So you can zoom in again, and you'll see that that 24 megapixel is definitely helping. It's much more naturally sharp on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let me make something very clear. This isn't how you look at photos. You know when you show somebody a picture on your phone, you go, oh, here, take a look at that. And then they go, oh, yeah, that's a cool photo. And then that's it, done with the day. They're not pixel peeping like we are right now. With this photo, I cannot see a physical difference at all as to which one would be better. Now, this photo, however, is completely different because one's using a 5x lens and the other one's using a 3x lens. Personally, I prefer the 5x lens. I've always loved 120mm focal length. I would personally choose the right side over the left side. However, again, personal preference. You don't want 5x lens, get the Pro. You want the 5x lens, get the Pro Max. So let's go through the pros and cons of upgrading from the 14 Pro to the 15 Pro Max. So the pros are, you're getting the latest technology. You are going to be getting that 5x lens. You're going to be getting USB-C. You're going to be getting that ProRes in log. You're also going to be getting a couple millimeters closer in macro mode. A 2x larger sensor with the 5x. You're also going to be getting that next generation portrait mode. And let's not forget that extra coating on the lenses that's stopping those sun flares. That, for me, is the biggest thing. And then also, finally, HDR5. Now, here's the cons. None of it's really noticeable. Here's how I see it. If you're going to trade in your current phone and get some money off the new one, or it's not going to cost you any more money, upgrade. There's no harm done. But if you're going to shell out an extra £1,000 for something that you don't necessarily need, or it can even tell the difference, bad choice. Bad financial decision. Now, let's not downplay how good this is. Like, the ProRes log footage is unbelievable. It's fantastic to color grade. It doesn't look like iPhone footage at all. The photos with that smart HDR5 and the reduced glare on the lens is fantastic. These are all things that I massively appreciate. But that's because this is my job. Go over this video, look at all the photos that we've compared, look at the footage, and you tell me if it's for you. That's the top and bottom of it. Because it's my job to be a photographer, I notice all these little things, and it makes a bigger difference to me than it would do to any average Joe on the street. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff you already love to do. I will see you in the next one. Silly.